privilege within society. Equity and Social Justice by Arianna Spagnuolo. My problem statement. Statement of the research problem. As an educator, I am interested in providing my students the tools and knowledge to want and be a voice of change in our society. I want to specifically work in a diverse board for these reasons. I want my students to understand the importance of social justice and equity. I want my students to feel comfortable about expressing their ideas and understandings of these sensitive topics. By implementing a social justice and equity-based classroom learning environment, I will be working towards solving the problems of stereotypes, judgments, prejudices, and other ideas that negatively change my students' acceptance of others' diversity. My research questions. How do we create an equity and social justice-based junior classroom? How do we implement equity and social justice to different curriculum subjects? Some definitions and relevant terms. So equity has to do with everyone having access to fair and equal treatment under the law, regardless of race and social class or gender. Social justice extends the concept of equity to include human rights as a part of the social contract. Justice in terms of the distribution of wealth, opportunities, and privilege within society. Equality, the state of being equal, especially in the status, rights, and opportunities. Racism, prejudice against, and discrimination or antagonism directed against someone of a different race based on the belief that one's own race is superior. Literature annotated bibliography. This article that I found gives tips on how to combat racism in the classroom. It states that creating a healthy curiosity and promoting that critical thinking can help build an understanding and acceptance through comfortability within the subject. We want our students to be individuals. That means sharing their cultures, traditions, and other factors that make us individuals. Giving our students more than just an experience through text or speech, but with actual experience, like videos or even going on a field trip, having them understand firsthand those cultures and beliefs. Have our students share their questions regardless of offense, because the only way we can learn or understand is to have those thoughts shared and changed. Create lessons that entail racism, social justice, and equity. That way they are familiarized with these topics. This next article that I found provides information on how to make our students the voice and leaders for change. We can promote positive change by discussing real-world problems and giving them multiple perspectives. It discusses the best practices in teaching core subjects, whole also including social justice in the classroom. Social justice should not be an add-on in the classroom. It is a practice that promotes a higher level of thinking and learning. Build upon your students' diverse experiences when creating lessons and showing that you value the students and what they have learned and said in a classroom is really important when creating a classroom for social justice. In the last article that I found, the information that I had gathered from the book has been insightful on the teacher's role in the classroom environment and how we as educators can promote social justice and equity. It references that as teachers, we are unable to change the standardized testing or have little individual control over many of the factors that shape the conditions of the school. But we are able to control our own classroom and its learning environment. It says that we need to go beyond the formulated expectations of what a classroom is and think about the students and their needs. The book has important information about the impactful way having a social justice-based classroom can positively affect our students. Teaching our students the privileges each race may have and talk about their histories to promote acceptance, change, and understanding. This book is a great resource for those teachers who strive to promote a critical thinking classroom, one that includes the diversity of the students with their learning styles, racial and cultural diversities. Literature summary. There are a lot of resources in literature on creating a social justice and equity-based classroom. Each resource I found included main concepts that help promote change in our students and create a new generation where they become the voice for change. Each resource stressed that as teachers, our classroom is more than a space for students to learn. It is what we make it, and what means that space can be open forum for our students to challenge, learn, and experience. Our students need to be comfortable with expressing their ideas and for us to support their thinking through our lessons and creating lessons that reflect their interests and questions. Each resource gave ideas on how to go about implementing these ideas into our everyday routines. Through exploration, discussing, and experiencing, having social justice and equity be a part of the everyday learning, not just one lesson, having it be a part of our everyday lessons. We can instill these ideas by talking about the difficult concepts and debuffing the things that we think that are incorrect. But they need to feel comfortable to share their ideas. By having an open classroom where questions are encouraged, the students will feel comfortable sharing their ideas and understandings. Built upon the things your students have shared about their own cultures and experiences. That way they feel connected and understood. Give the students more than one perspective is something that all three resources stressed. Having experience through more than just reading, so videos, discussions, but having field trips where they can put things into real perspective. My research action plan. Data resources. The data I chose to focus on are assignments that reflect the topic discussed during that specific lesson. Personal journal reflections and alias bulletin tweets, which are comments, reflections, or questions the students might have. I decided to focus on these three big reputations of their learning and growth. The reflections will show progression, the assignments will give me a good indication of their application of the information taught, and the bulletin tweets will be a great way to assess their critical thinking skills. I chose these three data sources to give me three different ways of understanding my students, what they learned, and their opinions and their growth. Triangulation, validity, and reliability. Each part of these three data sources I chose to use gives me different perspectives of the student's understanding and growth. The first data source I chose to use was a product, which would be assignments. I believe this would be a great source to assess their understanding and completion of my expectations for their learning. The second data source I chose to use was bulletin open form tweets, where the student can use an alias name that is only known to me, and they can share their thoughts, feelings, and questions. This is a good source for me to gain understanding of their critical thinking skills. The third data source I chose to use is journal reflections. This source will give me monthly and weekly assessments of their understanding and their growth. Participants and setting. The students in my potential class would be my participants. I would be collecting data to track the successfulness of the equity and social justice-based class. If I could present my research to other staff members and have them as well participate, as well as parents and the principal. Adapting the topics and theories discussed based off the students that I have. Changing from month to month the topics we would be discussing, such as human rights, racial inequalities, unwarranted judgments, and social economical status, and etc. Ethical considerations. When creating this inclusive and equity/social justice-based classroom, the opinions of the students will be confidential. I have chosen ways of collecting data that will ensure the confidentiality of my students. I will be collecting personal reflection journals on the topics I will be teaching them, and the topics that will be discussed, such as social economical statuses, race, and gender inequality. I would create a share board where students write questions and thoughts on the topics that are discussed. They will be assigned an alias name that only I have access to and I would know, and that they would choose. I would as well be collecting assignments on the ways my students apply the concepts taught and how they handled these potential controversial topics. So this is my timeline chart of data collection process. The first one would be a product, which is the assignments, and that'd be collected once or every 2 weeks from September to June. The next would be class reflection board, where students had what they learned, like a tweet on a bulletin board, then they will be collected by me. That'd be monthly or once a month of September to June. And student reflections, which are in journals, and that would be monthly, once every 2 weeks from September to June. So my closure, creating a themed-based classroom will definitely help grow my understanding of planning and research. For each week, I will need to prepare and create lessons that reflect certain equity and social justice-based topics. These subjects are an important part of being a respectful, active member of society. Educating our students on the importance of mutual respect and inclusivity of all diverse peoples will help create working participants of change. They will be educated and equipped to be a voice of change in the way we interact with others, and accept without judgments, and love others for each other's differences.